now.
Just hold that on whoever's talking.
Little GoPro light lighting you up back there, Keith.
Yeah, it's kind of way too bright for my eyes, actually.
It's gonna last about 5 minutes, and then it's gonna be out. We'll just leave it there for now.
What's that little car studio here?
Say,
Hey,
Yeah.
season opens Monday in Missouri. I can't wait.
oh, get him,
Can't wait.
Buck.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. How do you want to go about this, Zinger? You want to run down through these topics?
Yeah, I think we should go through it, and then as people join us, then we can try to answer questions fast at the end that we typically do. So hopefully, we get some more eyes on here. But yeah, I think, well, I don't know. First, could you tell me the story of what happened this morning a little bit? Is
I
that
can't tell you everything because you're gonna be able to watch it in about 40 minutes.
Okay, well, maybe we'll just wait then, and we can recap it tomorrow. But we can go through the topics. I think the first thing we could talk about is just how turkeys kind of shift their patterns once pressure comes in, because I feel like that's something that, regardless of your season's opened or not, it's like you're going to be dealing with that here soon. Seems like we see that transition within like a couple of days. So what are you guys seeing as far as that goes, where you're at currently? Because how long's the season been open where you guys are right now?
6 days or so. 6. Well, we've been seeing the same trends everywhere we've went this year. Me and Nick were talking about that earlier a little bit. And before we get into that, just to give you guys some context, we're sitting in a McDonald's parking lot at the moment. And right next to this laptop of Ted's is propped up with a rain jacket and some batteries and stuff. And then right next to it, we've got a laptop that's uploading Keith's hunt from this morning.
That looks like a real life tripod right there, man. I don't know. You wouldn't even be able to tell from my angle.
They've got a pretty good
Professional.
spot. It's
Professional.
Little Jimmy rigging, and he's set up.
There you
ready to go.
Anyway, though, the turkeys and the hunting pressure thing, me and Nick were talking about this earlier, and just tell them, Nick, tell them about what happened at the lease. So walk them through that real briefly.
Yeah, so if you saw the Texas videos, we killed 2 birds real quick, like the first couple days of the season. At what?
I was looking at the comments.
Nick.
Keith looks like the angry janitor in the elementary school. Back there with his do-rag on.
Right on.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, so we killed those birds real quick, and I went back the following weekend, day before Easter, just stopped in for an afternoon, or a full day actually. And so somebody had hunted that property for 5 days, 5 of the first 7 days, and the weather was exactly the same a week after the open, but the birds were completely different. Not gobbling deer as much, one. Maybe respond to a call, but not coming to a call. Just a couple things that I saw, and it's the same stuff we're seeing here on public. Not much gobbling after fly down.
We've talked about that a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how many people were hunting the lease other than us and your dad and Scott?
3 or 4 other people.
4 other people.
Yeah.
People always talk about the difference between public and private. There really ain't no difference to a turkey. It's either hunting pressure or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you either have people hunting you or you don't. And when those things don't have people hunting them, it doesn't matter where they are. They're just way easier to deal with. Way easier. That's why we always talk about how opening day is such a big deal. It's like if you have done your scouting leading up to opening day and you got pins on birds and you can get right in there amongst them, you can kill them effectively on opening day, or even the first couple days of season sometimes.
I feel like there's a good example is when we were in Mississippi. Nick got on that bird right off the bat opening day, and then the second day we got on another turkey right off the bat in the morning and killed both of them. And then it was probably a week or so before you killed your turkey.
Yeah.
And that one was back in a pretty deep hole, and there was boot tracks through there, and couldn't get him to gobble the first day we were in that spot. But then that night we ended up roosting him and killing him the next morning.
Yeah, and we had to walk a mile and a half to get to him. Like, in a tough spot. Like he was in the very back corner where you could not hear him from any of the access points on public. I mean, you would have had to have made a long trip in there, and he was the only one that we heard in that particular area. But what we're seeing this week is reflective of a lot of that same stuff. Like these turkeys, there's still turkeys around, but their behavior has changed dramatically. Like there's not as many turkeys gobbling as there was during, you know, the opening few days of season. The turkeys that are there they're either still gobbling and just changing their behavior, like going away from you every time you call, or continuously moving to spots where they feel safe. They're just not as readily committing to the call. Like the other day, we walked in 2.5 miles, but we were seeing boot tracks down the road all the way to where we got on these turkeys. And there was 3 or 4 turkeys gobbling, but none of them came in. One of them was alone too, and he was coming up closer to us gobbling, but he didn't come to us. He just kind of flanked around us in passing at 100 yards, and then we dealt with him the rest of the morning, and he was just consistently a pain in the butt. Like, I mean, he would gobble. As soon as you started calling, he'd gobble once or twice, and then he'd shut up, and then you give him 30 minutes, and he'd gobble again, and he'd switch locations again. Now, he could have just been following a hen, but he was doing a lot of moving around, and he was also up high. You know, a lot of times when they get hens in these hills, they'll take them down in those creek bottoms and stuff. And then the turkeys that do have hens, they're not saying much at all. They're just basically controlling their little flock by strutting and drumming and, I mean, just soft talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if part of it, I feel like there's less gobblers on the landscape after that first couple days, and then they congregate more hens, and then they don't have to gobble near as much.
Yeah.
But also with the hunting pressure, they're gonna shut up a little bit more too.
And they take them into these little holes where there's no people. It's like they feel that, I don't know how to describe it, but a lot of the animals that we hunt on heavily hunted properties, they just feel that pressure and they move around the landscape to avoid it. Like where Keith and Nick killed that turkey this morning was how far?
2 miles.
2 miles in a hole, like remote hole.
A literal hole.
Yes. Way the heck back in there. And they acted like they hadn't been hunted all year. They gobbling their brains out, hens going nuts. You know, I mean, y'all will see in the video. It's wild.
Just looked like, Keith, looked like the place that we shot the turkey in Tennessee. Yeah, just from the photos, it looks like a big...
I actually said that to Nick. Like, as soon as we shot that thing, I was like, that reminded me of the Tennessee hunt where we had to just get down in the hole with them. And, like, once you're in the flock with them, you're in their game, and you don't really have to worry about trying to locate them anymore, but you got to find where the hole is.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I was going to mention about the pressure thing. It's like they definitely act different, but once you find that spot, it gets harder and harder throughout the season, but you can still find pockets where they feel comfortable on heavily pressured area. It's just, you know, going to take effort, and they're less likely to do the obvious thing that you were seeing them doing before the season or the first weekend or something.
Well, I mean, we're seeing that even on within the same area. So the turkeys they hunted this morning, we were guessing, because you guys didn't see any boot tracks going back there, did you? No boot tracks going back there 2 miles in the middle of deep hole. These turkeys ain't been messed with. But the other turkeys that we've been hunting, you guys were on one yesterday morning up by the parking lot.
Yeah.
And then me and Ted have been hunting the same bird by camp. But the problem with him is he's got roads on either side of the creek drainage that he's in. Like, hunters from both sides of the drainage can hear him. But, I mean, we just stubborn, didn't want to leave a turkey to find a turkey, so we stayed with him, and he was a bear.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't kill him. Somebody else shot him this morning, pretty sure, way up the creek in a totally different spot. But that's what we've been seeing all week is these turkeys got in these pockets, and they're if they're close to pressure or if there's boot tracks around or anything, that a lot of them got hens and they are just in a little hole and they're not saying much at all. I mean, those birds the other day, we were on them for 3 hours straight And the one turkey maybe gobbled 4 or 5 times in that period of time.
Yep, not much.
And he just stood on a knob basically down above this creek drumming in a wide open area where, you know, he was visible to his hens, and the hens would drift away from him, but not far enough where he felt like they were leaving. They drift away, and as soon as you'd start calling, you'd see them hens. That one time I called aggressively, and them hens turned around off the ridge, and they ran to him in that bottom. And he just stayed in the same spot. All he did was drum. Strut.
Yeah, that's the most recent video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that one this morning, and it's like that classic deal of you call and he gobbles once every, I don't know, looks like every 3 or 4 times you were calling to him, at least at the beginning, and then eventually you were just hanging with the drumming, like you said. And it's like, yeah, definitely frustrating, especially when they get in an open bottom and there's multiple turkeys and you can't do anything to get closer.
We were close. That 1 o'clock closure has saved some turkeys this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's something that, you know, is a good transition point into, you know, what can you do about that? And I mean, one of the things that we do a lot when possible is hunt all day, you know, just leave it alone and come back later. But in a state like, you know, where you guys are, where it's closed at 1, hunt in other states where it's noon, like that can be super frustrating if you're dealing with that, you know, shut off pretty much the whole rest of the morning. And I feel, you know, there's pros and cons to it. I mean, if you like fishing, you know, close at 1's pretty good. If you like, you know, hanging out at camp, close at 1's pretty good. If you got to edit a video by tonight, close at 1's good. But like, on the other hand, wanting to go hunting and not being able to is pretty frustrating too, especially because in our experience, I would say that one of our best tactics for hunting pressured turkeys that are being weird is to just go back and hit them at different times when the pressure's dropped off completely.
Yeah, I feel like the best thing you can do is get something roosted if it's possible, and then just be on them right off the bat.
Zip.
Yeah, looks like the short bus. That's accurate.
Yeah, there was 2 turkeys this week that we basically, that yesterday, Nick and Keith had one gobbling and strutting and drumming just out of sight, and they had to quit at 1. It's like 1 o'clock, so they turned around and left him. Now, granted, they went into that same spot today and killed one. And then me and Ted had to leave that bird the other day like he was 50 yards away, just barely out of sight. We could see the hens. It was one of them situations where we got about as close as we could without boogering him. But if we had another 2 or 3 hours with him right there, where we're just in their bubble and we could slowly inch in or just wait for him to kind of make a mistake, or those hens drift off just a little bit, and then a few light calls maybe brings him 30 yards closer to you, and then you whack him. I mean, we've killed a bunch of them like that in the middle of the afternoon after 1 o'clock. But it was 1. Like, well, our hands are tied. Obviously, you can't. And I don't know. I feel like at a noon or a 1 closure, I'm just way more aggressive. Like, as soon as it's daylight in the morning, I almost have like this anxiety on me that we got to go. I mean, this morning when that guy shot that turkey, I was like, we got to burn back to the car now. We got to try to find one, and we only have so long to do it. In the states where you can hunt all day, it's like, let's get some coffee and breakfast and get back out around 10 or 11, you know, and then hang with them all day. And man, we have a lot of luck in the middle of the afternoon. I think that 1 o'clock and that noon time saves a lot of turkeys.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I didn't know any different. We closed at noon the whole season, and then somewhere along the way, I don't remember when they changed it, but they changed it to where the second half of the season you could hunt all day. And I remember those first few years, it was kind of like, what? Like, what do you even, you know, I never could even dream of killing a turkey in the middle of the day or, you know, afternoon, evening. And it is funny to think of my perspective, you know, as a college age or whatever it was, whenever that switched and we could start hunting all day later in the season, and how I had to just zero expectation of pulling that off, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get more experience in places you can hunt all day, and you realize how beneficial it is. And it's not to say that, you know, gobbling, I think if I could say something to myself back at that time frame, I would say, don't expect gobbling every single time to be as consistent as it is at first light when they're on the roost. But if you know where turkeys, you know, tend to hang out, and you've been seeing them in an area, or, you know, you just have some sort of pattern on a turkey in general, go hang out in those places, and you never know what might happen if you got the time to do it. And I just think that, you know, again, when I was younger, I just thought, well, they're not, you know, how often did I even hear a gobble past 11 o'clock? And all the days that I'd hunted up to that point, it's like not very many compared to, you know, first light. So I think just having the confidence to go out and try it is important. If you want. If you want to go fishing, go fishing.
Yeah. I was talking, we were talking about this earlier too. I don't know if this is just my anecdotal, you know, I guess, analyzation or whatever you would call it. But I feel like in states where you can only hunt till noon or 1, you get a little better gobbling activity overall. And maybe that's, like I said, maybe there's not a lot of truth to that, but it would make sense on some areas if you can hunt the birds all day, and they do get pressured in the afternoons and the evenings, it would make sense that they would gobble less. Because they definitely gobble less after they receive pressure in any other place, in any other sense. But when you got to be out of there at noon, I mean, they got 7 hours of the day when they're unbothered, and they just go right back to what they're doing. But like I said, I don't know, that there may not be any truth to that. That just,
I mean, they definitely aren't getting bumped around as much middle of the day, generally speaking. I mean, I know you still get mushroom hunters and hikers and stuff like that in some areas, but, you know,
Yeah.
in general, they're not getting, you know, bumped off a ridge and flying to the next county middle of the day nearly as often. But I think it is interesting too, going back to that, like, before I had hunted all day, felt like noon was forever away. We had all kinds of time. And now I'm more like what you said earlier, where it's like, you just never have enough time. Next thing you know, it's like, we're down to 20 minutes, and it seems like that's so consistent. But when I was younger, it didn't bother me at all because I had never hunted past noon. But the one story that always just cracks me up, probably one of my favorite turkey hunting memories, honestly, is the one that Keith crawled up to and shot literally 1 minute before the close a couple of years ago. Like, that was such a funny moment, and I was just thinking about it the other day. I was thinking about, Keith, how it was at the very end of our very end of the road. It's like we can't get any closer in our heads. It's like we can't get any closer, and we also can't just pick up and walk out of here. Like, we're gonna just spook them. And I remember just being like, well, you gotta do something, Keith. Like, you gotta try it. You just dove headfirst into the greenbrier and just crawled, like, just, I mean, one of the craziest experiences of a turkey just not caring about what was happening other than right in his immediate bubble. It was so crazy. I mean, Keith still made a good stalk on it the last 10 yards that he needed to get, but the turkey was probably 40 yards away from us in our setup, and he would go behind this down tree, and Keith just dove into that greenbrier and just crawled. Every time he'd go behind that tree, he'd just get a little closer. Literally shot him 1 minute before, and he made the decision probably, 8 minutes before?
Minutes, yeah.
Yeah, it was just hilarious. What an awesome memory.
Ned killed one in Missouri Public at 12:59.
Yep.
Yeah.
1 minute before.
That was one that we struck off the road and just got on him with the call super hard and eventually broke and come up there. But
I think that still is kind of the tip, I guess, for close at noon, or, you know, you got birds that are going quiet, just stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, last year in Illinois, dude, me, you, and Hayden, we hunted those turkeys all morning, and they wouldn't break. They would gobble occasionally, and then we got on that ridge, and the sun popped out, and would we have like 5 minutes left?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there one over here on this ridge is pow, and that one that we've been hunting all morning is pow, gobbling like crazy, and it's like, man, we have 15 more minutes, we could get over there and kill it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that one, dude, remember that one went down the bottom and gobbled for like an hour, just nonstop. Every 2 minutes he was gobbling. It's just like,
We just sat there and listened
yeah.
to it. Like I unloaded my gun and we sat there for a little bit because he was in between us and the truck. It's like, well, we just got to let him do his thing and work off so we can get out of here without buggering him.
Mm-hmm.
Gobbling her brains out. Well,
Yeah.
that happens a lot though, man. If you watch those videos and just think back to those states where they have the early closures, how many of them do you kill in that last hour?
Mm-hmm.
In Ohio last year,
Mm-hmm.
killed that turkey
Yeah.
11:45.
Yeah, I feel like it happened quite a bit in Virginia a couple of years ago too.
Mm-hmm.
You and Hayden killed that one right at the buzzer.
Yeah, that was 3 minutes, I think, before.
Yeah.
That's also another hilarious hunt, and that actually just popped up on my Snapchat memories because in that same general vicinity the year before, Ben had missed one, and then a year later, Hayden had the whole gun misfire. Do you remember that? When Hayden's gun didn't go off like 2 or 3 times in a row?
Yeah.
To just a perfect call in. Like the turkey came in strut and had all kinds of cool footage of him, and then Hayden's gun clicks, and in very Hayden fashion, he just goes click, and neither one of us move at all. And a couple seconds goes by, and the turkey's still standing there with his, just looking around, has no idea we're there. And Hayden just whispers to me, "My gun just misfired. I'm not sure if you heard that or not." And I was just like, "Yep." Like, absolutely heard it. It just clicked right beside me. And then it's just like, just eject another one in as soon as you can, And I don't really even remember. Yeah. I think it did it twice, though. I think it misfired once, misfired again. And I think he missed him on the third shot as it was.
Didn't Jared Scheffler have that happen to him? And he
Yeah.
actually racked another one and killed him?
That was because the dang gun wasn't shut.
Oh, yeah.
And that's happened to Jake twice now. Well, once was with Jared. The gun wasn't all the way closed, semi-automatic, and clicked, and he racked another one, killed it. And then just last year in Iowa, same thing happened. We had tons of turkeys, and one popped up 20 yards away, and his gun clicked, racked another one. They all take off. Well, luckily they came back up, and then Jake killed the one. But yeah, it's happened just a few times.
Brody wants us to give him a shout out. Brody, what's up?
What up, Brody? Sorry, man. Our lighting is malfunctioning on us here.
Yeah.
Let me just try to get some on Nick's face so y'all can see him real good. See him? He's mustacheless back here.
Yeah.
There you go, Keith.
What so I guess, do you guys have any other things that come to mind as far as like pros or cons for the end of the day?
Aiden says it was 3 times. Had to pick up one of the shells off the ground and try number 4.
Sorry, Zinger, what'd you say?
It's all good, Hayden, buddy. That's a memory right there. Loved it. And then we strike one right where we had saw some strut marks on the way back, and it was just one of those days. That's the thing with turkey hunting. You can be at your lowest point and turn around and in 2 minutes be at your, having one come screaming down the gun barrel. It's just funny sport like that.
The highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
We might start slow, but we always come out on top, isn't that right?
I can tell you right now, this morning we were pretty dang low. We're just walking out of there, boy.
And we're still right there.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't wait. Well, I couldn't get to service fast enough so I could get.
I was down here, and then I got that picture.
Yeah,
it took over an hour to get to service to be able to send that to y'all.
We quit hunting pretty much after you sent that picture. Like we were like, well, I was just motoring around everywhere in this thing, just stopping, piling in the ditch, and calling quicks. Like, oh, we got to hit another spot. And then we got that picture. It's like, oh, let's just go to camp.
Let's just go party.
Yeah, man.
And party we did.
Yeah, heck yeah. It's a good time.
Well, keep this in mind, too. No matter how low you get the rest of this season, just think, hey, you could be sitting at home doing your second round of PT for the day because you got a reconstructed ACL. So,
yeah. That's true. It's true. Very true.
Definitely makes you appreciate the days that suck a little bit more because it's like, could be doing that.
That's right.
So, is there anything else that comes to mind, benefits or good or bad, that comes along with this, ending middle of the day time frame.
Well, the last thing I can think of is growing up in Missouri, where we had a 1 o'clock closure. We always roosted.
Mm-hmm.
We were always out there roosting birds. And then when I started hunting down south with a lot of our buddies down here, and in states where you can hunt all day, a lot of them never fooled with roosting turkeys. A lot of them said, I hunt them in the afternoons and in the evening sometimes, but I rarely roost. But I mean, when you got a 1 o'clock closure and you're trying to get on those turkeys ASAP in the morning, really helps to roost. Or a noon closure, that might put you in PA. A few years ago, I think we found 80% of the turkeys that we eventually hunted by roosting in the evenings.
And that's a 1 o'clock close, or
That's a noon.
Noon.
Yeah, we had to leave one. We had the same thing happen in Pennsylvania. Me and Jake, we had to leave him gobbling at noon, and then we went back in there the next morning and killed him. Or yeah. I'm assuming it's the same turkey, but who knows? But
I think the other benefit of it is, if you can see it this way at least, is if you got the time, you can still, cruise around, check different areas from the road. You can glass, you can listen. It's like you don't necessarily have the ability to hunt, but you can still set yourself up, just kind of do some of the homework type of stuff during that time frame and really focus on that versus being tempted to dive in somewhere. You can even still just go mushroom hunting and look for turkey sign along the way. I mean, that's definitely something that we've done before in some of these other areas where you can't hunt all day. It's like you still can have an outdoor activity that helps you kind of scout your way around. Like I mentioned fishing, like Keith, back in you remember like the old turkey camp days in Ohio when we were younger. It's like we'd go fishing, we'd go look for groundhogs to shoot, and ultimately, like, we're going around all these areas. We're popping down to the river to go fishing, or we're going to check a field for a groundhog. Inevitably, you're kind of scouting your way around too. So it's like, if you can just keep moving, I think that you can still do some homework and get a lot done and not be tempted to dive in and look for turkeys. You just do that different times, and you can.
That's what we did today for a little bit. We just drove around a different section of the public area that we're hunting and just looking at access, seeing if anybody's in there, and looking in the fields and stuff like that. And we're probably going to go back there here in the next couple of days, I would say, and just check it out because it looked like a pretty good spot.
It's kind of funny too. Like, it feels like it's a cliche, and I guess it is, but at this point, but until you really start driving around a lot yourself, it's hard to actually understand the value of that and how many details you can pick up on just from checking out areas from the road or the access points. And I think it's kind of the same along those same lines, I guess, as just doing the homework. Like, if you do it, you're going to start to see a benefit of it. But anyway, got to just try. Never know what you might find from the road, even if it's nothing but timber and thick. One might run across. Hayden and I watched one run across the road. What's that?
Nothing.
Hayden and I watched one run across the road in front of us last year in the middle of the mountains where there wasn't an opening for miles and miles. Just Tom ran right across the road, and we ended up shooting him the next morning. And it's like, you never know. Keep your eyes peeled and stay optimistic.
That's right.
Zach, here's something you might not know. It's a little warm in this car, and so we kind of periodically were cracking the windows, but it smells like a giant foot in here.
Wonder why.
Oh, geez.
Did you see that he had his shoes on?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But
I know we stink. I know I stink.
Oh yeah.
Depending on how long Keith has been in that exact location, he may actually have an entire trash can at his feet too. I've seen it. That's all I could say. One time we'd been hunting for however long, I have no idea, and all of a sudden for the first time in you know, a week or something, I get in the passenger seat and I'm like, what are you doing? Throw this away. It was just like an entire pile of just rotten trash at the bottom of his feet. And it's like, no wonder it smells weird in here. There's a trash can in the back or a trash bag at the back, son.
It just becomes a home at a certain point.
When you're on the road, man,
That's awesome.
things get pretty wild after a few days.
Mm-hmm.
You read that?
What?
Ted can snatch a salmon going upstream with those eagle's claws. You're probably right. You're getting long, boy.
What do you got? You got fingernails or what?
Toenails.
Oh, your toenails.
Yeah. You got some soot on the bottom of those feet.
You're getting pretty gross.
He been out scratching in some
Maybe it's McDonald's will let you use this garden hose they got out back. Wash them babies off.
Hell yeah.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with just a good foot scrub. Sometimes you gotta do it. You start getting that black, like, true gel in there, Jello or whatever, jam.
Uh-huh.
Son, you just better off scrubbing that out.
Yeah,
Put it in a creek.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of smells.
Yee, yee, yee.
There's a whole segment in a video from West Virginia where I'm talking about how if you don't scrub your feet every once in a while, they'll rot off and you'll end up with stubs. And I just watched that recently. I was like, you forget about some of those things, but it's true. You got to scrub every once in a while.
Makes sense, I reckon.
So do you guys want to talk about, you know, the more quiet communication of turkeys?
Yeah. We got to experience something pretty cool the other day, I felt like. Whenever we were right up on that gobbler that had them hens.
The first spot?
Yeah, that spot, that 2.5 mile spot up the road.
The
Gom. Yeah. Boy, it was a long way. We were tired people. But anyway, we got up tight to this gobbler that had these hens all morning. We could hear him drumming just out of sight. And we couldn't see the hens or hear the hens. And then, like, as we're creeping up there, we're getting ready to make, like, one last move to get right over the cap of the ridge where we can maybe get eyes on him and kill him. And then to my right, they yelped twice. And it was almost like like that. That was it. And it's like, oh, crap, there's the hens. And as soon as they did that, you heard him drum, and then here they came back across that bottom from our right, heading towards it, drifting back to him. And I'm just thinking, like, I'd called to that turkey so much, and he gobbled 5% of the time, maybe, to the calling. And I was cutting at him, I was yelping at him, I was soft calling to him, I was Jake yelping, and just throwing the kitchen sink. You know, I'm trying all different kinds of things because we set up on the thing half a dozen times. But he's just, they're almost in a different world when they're like that. They're in like this 100-yard bubble world where they are close enough to see and hear him drumming, and they're close enough to see and hear each other with that quiet, those clucks, because occasionally those hens would start clucking down there, almost like a turkey does when they get nervous, except it's quieter.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're doing, is that they're just worried about the turkeys in that small location. They are not concerned about turkeys anywhere else.
Yeah, they're not calling to each other,
No.
or way out to try to pick one up from hundreds of yards away.
No. And that, like those hens, you could just occasionally hear them with a little whine in there, or a little single or double note yelp. It was rarely anything more than that. And a couple years ago, when we killed that turkey in Alabama, that never gobbled, that had all them hens, me, you, and Jake.
In the evening?
Yeah, in the afternoon. Yeah. That's what he come into, was just.
Yeah, he didn't hardly make a sound.
He didn't make a sound, and it was just called to him just barely loud enough that he could hear it. And you could see his reaction to it. You know, he would hear it, and then he would pop strut, and he would take a couple steps towards you. But they're like you said, they're not concerned about calling to other turkeys. They're just concerned about what's going on in their little posse right there. And they're not always right with the hens. The hens could be, in this instance, the hens were at times 100 yards from the gobbler. But it was in such open woods, and he just put himself in a spot on the point of this little finger that went out in the middle of this bottom where he could just stand there and strut. He had no need, he did not need to gobble. like, and until those hens start nesting, that's how they spend their day a lot of the time, all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Like those hens may go to the creek and feed a little bit. They may even go out to a nest and lay an egg, but then they're coming right back. And if he's got 3 or 4 of them, he's constantly busy. What needs to happen to get him to gobble a bunch is they need to go off and sit on a nest and not come back for like an hour or so.
Right.
Or just get far enough away to start making him nervous. And then all of a sudden he's gobbling on his own. It's like, oh, that sucker's right. And that's when he'll go, sometimes he'll go hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yards to come to.
Yeah, right. The last time we saw the hens, they were just laying out. They had their wings out, just cooling off. They weren't going anywhere. So, I mean, they were just right there in that bubble the whole time.
He's just up there pecking, strutting every once in a while. That's it.
Mm-hmm. That hunt that I just mentioned where Keith made the crawl on the one, shot him a minute before, the close, that was an interesting one because he was gobbling and responding early in the morning, but by like 8:30 probably, there was a noticeable difference in his demeanor. We watched him. We could actually had eyes on him a lot throughout that morning, but he was strutting, and then all of a sudden he just stopped strutting, and they just, all 3 of them, I think it was a tom and 2 hens, and they just walked up and out of sight. And then from that point on, we just kept moving to where we would last see him, and we'd catch a glimpse of him strutting. And he never gobbled again. And we got to a point, too, where we were so close. I mean, we were, like I said, 40, 45 yards from him, and we're looking at him. And we would call. We called. We gobbled with the mouth call, trying anything. And he never one time even flinched. I mean, he never picked his head up, nothing. And the hens really didn't either. Like, the hens, I think, eventually started just, but that was about it.
Did he never gobble on his own in that morning? I thought he did, like, at least once. I feel like I remember one time, like, the hens they didn't get far from him, but I feel like I remember one time when they were just drifting.
Maybe.
Once, and I feel like I have a memory that was pretty weird. That was like, man, it's one of the only times he gobbled through that morning.
It was late. It was pretty late, but he hadn't gobbled in hours, and he did once, and it was super quiet.
Yeah, it was like, they must have just gotten far enough away where he's just like, hey, come on, get back. Can't really see you through this stuff. Like, it was pretty thick greenbrier on that ridge and treetops and stuff.
That's actually another thing that, you may observe at some point or another is like the quiet gobble. That was one example, and another example was we were hunting in Wisconsin, and it was Whitney and Bruce and I in a setup, and we're literally looking at these turkeys 50 yards down the hill and watched one of them go out and gobble, couldn't even hear it. And it wasn't, I think maybe it was a little windy, but it was nothing crazy. Like, it was startling that you couldn't hear that thing. Where other
Jake
times...
talks about that a lot. He thinks that, and I think there's some validity to that. He thinks they can control the volume. Just like a hen can control their volume when they're yelping.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing that's making the sound, inside their body or their head. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why they couldn't control the volume of their gobble.
Remember that weird noise that one made in New York, Zach? I don't know what kind of gobble that was, but it was a totally different noise. Like, out of the tom.
That's one of those deals that, like, I think only you and I really know, like, because I've showed that to people, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, whatever that, like, you can hear it because you heard it in real life, but it's funny because in the moment, I'm like, what was that? But it's like it's almost like he choked on it, and it, like, went to nothing. It was like, it was a strange one, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe it because we talk about it with elk too. Elk will change the volume of their bugle a lot, and you'd think that be the same for turkeys. And I always think too, like, you think about that turkey that's alone, he goes way up high on the ridge and he casts his gobble and he's just ripping, and it's like you can hear that turkey from like a mile away, and it's like maybe he really is just ramping that volume up versus he's down in a little hole where everybody's close to him, and he just lets out a little one to just be like, hey, let's get back together here. Kind of like what you were saying, Keith, about that one that we kept moving in on.
They'll trick you when they're like that. because you hear a gobble and then you subconsciously think, okay, he's 300 yards or he's 500 yards or he's 700. There's so many other things that go into that distance and that's one of them is the volume. If they're with hens too, and like you said, if they're just trying to call to those hens or turkeys that are close by, they have no need to really belt one out.
I mean, just like that bird yesterday, that last gobble that we got on camera. I mean, that had to be one of those softer gobbles because we were in range to be able to.
Yeah, that was.
We were in range to be able to hear this bird drumming, and then we didn't even hear the gobble. As it happened, Keith heard it. Going back through the footage earlier, and he said, "Hey, that bird actually gobbled back one more time," and we had no idea. And we had to be inside 100 yards. So
that was pretty interesting.
A little bit of my life.
I didn't remember it, and I was watching back through that footage, and it was just like, I think that's a gobble right there. And neither of us reacted. It was kind of funny.
But so between yesterday and today, we got to see both sides of the spectrum from the same flock of turkeys, of the super soft, not making a whole lot of noise, and then today was, just chaos. And I don't know, maybe that's just a testament to the amount of pressure that might have been on them for them to kind of be able to flip that switch like that.
It's interesting too. I mean, it's kind of off topic, but just how one day, the weather can be slightly different and there's barely any gobbling activity, and then it's like all of a sudden the weather breaks and something's just enough, better for them, I guess, that all of a sudden you hear twice the amount that you heard the day before, or the last 5 days for that matter. And it's always just a funny deal where you may think you're hunting like a turkey, and then all of a sudden the weather hits right and it's just that ideal day. It's like, well, they're everywhere in here.
A turkey in a hunting property with turkeys will change, much like deer, kind of like every week it'll change. Those turkeys that we're hunting right now that got 3, 4, 5 hens, you leave them alone for a few days and go back in there in a week, that turkey might be dead, he might be spooked, or he might be alone and belting them out on top of one of those ridges ready to die. I mean, we did that in Alabama a couple years ago. We hunted the same spot for 3 days in a row. Every morning, turkey was in there and gobbled like 5, 6 times, flew down nothing. And then me and Jake went in there that last morning, and the turkey that was there, whether it was him or not, gobbled like hundreds of times and came in and died. I mean, you just never know when they're going to break loose. It's all about them hens, man. When they go down, when they go lay on them eggs, boy.
I got an interesting story that maybe would tell a lot about pressure and how quickly it can change a turkey. Keith, this involves you. We were hunting that ridge, pouring rain, 2018, I think. And we get up there and it's just miserable. Like one of the worst days you could ever dream of. Call down into a valley and a turkey gobbles. It's like, oh, well, that's sweet. And we didn't have much time because it was closed at noon. Call again. Bird gobbles and he's way closer. Now we can tell there's 2 of them. Well, this is back when we were still using decoys. We put a decoy up in the middle of the open trail, go back and set up off the decoy, call again. Here they come. They're way closer yet again. It's like, okay, they're going to be here in seconds. They come in. Keith shoots one of them, and we get footage of both of them. Turkey goes down, other one runs off, whatever. We don't think much of it. A few days later, I go back with Ben, and we get on a turkey a good ways from that, but same general vicinity, but a decent ways. I mean, maybe even like a half mile, and call the turkey right in. But we have the decoy, same decoy that Keith had just shot the turkey off of. Well, we come to find out later, after reviewing all the footage, that this is in fact his buddy of the one that Keith shot. Well, this thing comes in, sees the decoy, putts, and is out. And he kept gobbling, and we kept hanging with him, but it was apparent that we needed to stop using the decoy. And I think we went home, saw the footage of his tail fan. He had a broken feather, so we could tell, it was the same feather broken. It's like, that's definitely the same turkey. Well, the next day, I think it was the next day after that, we went into that same area, and he started gobbling. And that turkey gobbled non-stop, but he was doing that thing where he would just keep moving away. And then he found this little weird spot where he would gobble. And I mean, how many times do you think he gobbled that morning, Keith? Just hundreds.
Stupid.
And we just eventually, had to crawl in there because he wasn't committing to a call, but he would gobble to it, but he never moved from that spot. And I just think that's a good example of how much a turkey can just on a dime completely act different. Here he had come sprinting in the pouring rain on the first day, and his buddy gets shot, and he's like, I'm not doing anything ever again other than get in my safe spot and stay there and let him come to me. So anyway,
what kind of questions we got, Zinger? We got to go roost here in a few minutes.
All right, we'll go through them here. Braden asked, does pressure affect the amount of times they gobble? I'd say absolutely.
I think it's actually confirmed science at this point that it does. Like the gobbling activity drops way off on the heavily hunted sites that the research is. And like even the stuff that they're doing in Alabama with the song meters that we helped fund a few years ago, they're seeing the same thing. Heavily hunted sites, gobbling starts off high, then the birds get slammed, and gobbling trails off.
Yeah, we got videos if you search turkey research or anything along those lines in our main channel. You'll see videos where we talk about that specifically. Ty asks, if you locate a lot of sign but it's close to a parking lot or easy access, do you hunt it or do you go to harder to access areas? I mean, if it's fresh, probably hunt it. I mean, they're probably coming back there, would be my guess. They're going to be in close proximity to that.
Yeah, but it depends on the time of the year too. Like you could, with turkeys, it's kind of tricky because we were talking about sign last night. Henry was asking me about the best kind of turkey sign to find or whatever. And we love finding fresh sign above all else. But if a turkey's already been killed out of there, then you might be finding hen sign and Jake sign, for example. Like if you find fresh scratching later in the season, there may not be a longbeard in there anymore. He might be dead or spooked on. But if you find a fresh gobbler track near fresh scratching, money, no matter where it is, whether it's close to the access or not.
A gobbler track is as good as a gobble.
Yep, that's right.
All right, Last Chance asks, where's Nick's mustache? Did it fall off?
It's coming back.
It just jumped off my face the other day back in Texas and run away from me.
First name last.
Is that better?
He's got trouble coming in.
Tim asks, is there an entry-level mouth call just to learn how to fit it in my mouth properly and, make the basic sounds? I would say they're all a little different. I don't know if there's necessarily a beginner call. I don't know, Warb, you know better about that.
I got was just a straight V cut from Woodhaven, and that one was the first one that I felt like I could make some good sound off of.
Some of the double reeds will be easier to blow right offhand, and like the reeds that are made in that our calls are made with in our 3-pack, there's a bunch of light pro reeds in there that are just easier to blow in general. So those would be good. Yeah, but the main thing if you're just starting out is just to get a bunch of different mouth calls. Like if you can get 5-6 different ones, regardless of which cut or whatever, which brand, just get them and try them, and you'll start to, once they get broke into, they'll get easier to blow.
Yep. Braden asks, are morning or afternoon hunts better for pressured birds? Well, that just depends. But I don't know. Right off the top of my head, I always think, well, if you can get tight to them, and get to them before they shut down, if that's the tendency you're seeing, mornings can be better. But at the same time, if they're getting pressured and then people fall off, and go home, middle of the day can be better. So that's, just keep trying till you run out of time, and then try again tomorrow. Tommy asks, are y'all hunting Merriams this year? Any tips for hunting Merriams as opposed to Easterns? Terrain features to look for? I probably will in Colorado, but I don't know if you guys are gonna at all or not.
I don't know yet. We might. We've hunted them a lot. We love hunting them. Probably one of our favorite things to do is go out west and hunt Merriam's, I would say. Trying not to speak for everybody there.
Yeah, I'd love to go hunt them again this year. I don't know if we're gonna. I have no idea.
Well, hey, I will be, so just keep that in mind. As far as like tips for them, they're gonna move and do some stuff that you wouldn't even believe a turkey will do. I just think there's days with Merriam's that, in every turkey, but seems especially prevalent with Merriam's, that they just do something that makes you feel like, oh, that was as good as it gets. That was pretty straightforward. You call them in from longer distance or whatever, but then they also do the things where it makes you just scratch your head, like, how did a turkey even get there that fast? Like, how did he go up and over that mountain that fast? So I think don't underestimate them. That'd be my biggest tip. A turkey's a turkey. Yeah, he may come gobbling to the gun barrel, but he might also just, frustrate the heck out of you. You guys have anything to add to that?
I would say having some sort of loud locator call, or like a loud turkey call that you can cast out a long ways, because you're going to be in some big country out there probably to be able to just strike one.
Get good at coyote howling.
Yep. That works pretty good, seems like.
Tom asks, how's the healing going? I'm doing a lot better. Like today, I'd say is my best day, and that's kind of been the case every day. It's like a little bit better, a little bit better. Still chipping away at it. And I actually, it's going to be a year before I'm technical 100%, but, you can do a lot of things at 50%, 80%. I'm walking now. I'm able to go up steps. I'm doing step ups as PT. I'm doing some squats as PT. It's getting serious now, but I still don't have the clear to like walk on hills, so I'm still hanging loose on the turkey hunting. Just being patient until I get the clear. I think I got another week or two before that's the case, so we'll see. I'm just trying to get the clear before I push it too much, because I know I will. Tyler asks, done a little turkey hunting, but I've never heard a longbeard drum. Can you explain what that sounds like, please?
Can you do it?
Give it to him, Nick.
Did you hear that, Zinger?
I heard that.
I would say get some earbuds and watch. We got a video that's got it in it, or several. Just put earbuds in and watch that, and you'll be able to hear it.
Yeah, don't watch it on your TV unless you got surround sound or something, or earbuds, or like those headphones you got, Keith. You'll be able to hear it in there. Something's got a little bit of bass in it.
Catman just posted a video of a turkey drumming straight up on his, I think it was on his Instagram.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
The way Zach, you explained it to me years back is like, I feel like it made a lot of sense to me. It's like the sound you hear when there's a distant plane and you can't tell like even where the plane is even coming from, but it's just like that, like you feel it more than you hear it. It's just like a sound that's like you don't even really know you're hearing it until it's like done, and it's like, wait, that's what that was.
Unfortunately, it seems that some people can't hear it. I don't think my dad can hear it.
Can't hear it. That have never heard it.
Jim says he can't hear it, Jim Reiser.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, y'all, that can't. I truly am. I like that better than a gobble. I really do. You hear that drumming at point blank?
It's
You're
like
freaking out.
Safety's fixing to come off. Yes, sir.
Connor asks, how much pressure does it take for a turkey to feel distressed in that area? Barely any pressure where I'm at because we close at noon. Second year going out. Any tips about pressure in turkeys? Well, at about 10 pressures, they start to really feel distressed. I'm just kidding. I don't know how to measure that, but I mean.
Not either, but if you got some areas that close for a period of time, like days, not time-wise, or like a private property that if you go in and hunt like up at the farm, If we go in there and we hunt and a couple of the birds booger, and then we go and we leave and we come back like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, it's fine.
Mhm.
They're still doing their thing. They're still acting all right. So I don't really know like the exact number of days, but that continuous day after day after day pressure, it just is like think of it like a steady declining bar graph.
Mhm.
It's like you're putting more and more and more on these things every single day, and they're having to survive that and adjust their patterns along the way. So if you don't find the hole that they've went to evade that pressure, then you have to figure out what tactics they're using to survive and then exploit them.
Mhm.
Which way are they going when they fly down off the roost? Is there a little section of woods back in there that's all scratched up that he likes to go to and gobble in the mornings? And has he done that for 2 or 3 mornings in a row, and can you beat him there? You know, it's just a wrench that is thrown into the things, especially with pressured turkeys, that's hard to deal with. But I don't know about how much. I mean, when guys go in there and they start killing, like you said earlier, Zinger, that example where the 2 came in and you shot the 1,
Mhm.
like that was enough right there to mess him up for a number of days. You know, maybe at the very end of the season it's different for him and he'll come screaming back into a call. I don't really know, but it definitely messes with him.
Yeah, and I think every property's a little different too, along the lines of pressure. You know, some areas people get to all corners of that property every day. And then there's some places where people are maybe hunting it every day, but they're not getting to every corner of it every day, if that makes sense. So you have to treat that spot a little bit differently, or each of those spots differently. And I'd say a general rule that I like to think of, no matter what species I'm hunting, if it's deer, turkey, elk, whatever, just try to think about the patterns that the majority of hunters are doing and try to think outside of that box. Try to take note of what everybody's doing, and generally you'll see a trend, and that has helped me for sure.
All right, we got a few more.
Yeah.
Then we got to burn out.
I mean, we got a boil.
Mm-hmm.
We got to go. We got to be roosting in 25 minutes.
Here's a good one. I'll just dive right directly into this. What do y'all recommend us diehard whitetail hunters who can't get excited for longbirds? What do you do during the spring? Well, I just truly believe that if you really love hunting whitetails, and you can find a way to love turkey hunting as well, because every form of hunting is going to help you become a better hunter for other species. If you get better at turkey hunting, you're going to get better at deer hunting. So try to think of it that way. Or ignore me completely and go fishing. I don't know what you want to do in the spring. Go watch a baseball game or something. Go golfing. I don't know. I don't want to do any of that, but enjoy turkey hunting. You know, you can really improve your skill set as a deer hunter if you do that.
Learn to love it.
What?
Just learn to love it.
Just learn to love it. All right. I think, there's some people also asking about what happened to me. I'm rehabbing a ACL reconstruction, tore my ACL skiing. That's why I have not been turkey hunting yet this season. So we'll be back sooner than later. All right. Well, I just want to watch this video, so we'll wrap it up.
I'm getting ready
guys.
to hit publish as soon as we get off of here. We're gonna hit publish and go to the woods.
Yeah. So everybody that is listening now, go check out the new video. You guys roost a bird. I'm gonna go do some PT, eat dinner.
It's live right now.
Oh,
Sick.
it's up. Y'all
It's
go
up.
check it out.
All right, I'm gonna leave a nasty comment. See you guys later.
See you, brother.